Okay, so we're diving into some really fascinating and maybe even a little unsettling territory today.
Okay.
You guys sent in a story that takes this concept that usually just lives in the world of science fiction, right? Manipulating gravity. But this story, wow, it makes it feel almost like terrifyingly real.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is, it's not one of those stories that just sort of drops you into this world where gravity control is just like everyday life. You kind of get to like go on that journey of discovery with the main character.
Yeah.
You experience those initial like wow moments right alongside them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who wouldn't be, right? I mean, can you imagine hopping into like one of those GravTrans pods and just like zip it across continents in, a matter of minutes, leaving all the traffic jams way, way down below you? I mean, just the way the author describes the technology, it's so vivid. I got to admit, even I got kind of swept up in just the sheer coolness factor of it all.
Well, yeah, and it really taps into that very human like desire, to make things easier, to like push those boundaries, see what's possible. But, and this is where I think the story makes that really brilliant turn. It takes those fantastical elements like the grab shift vehicles and uses them to sort of hint at, what could happen if we have this kind of radical shift in technology. Remember those little whispers about, side effects, those early warning signs that people are just kind of like brushing aside.
It's like everybody's so enamored with the possibilities here that it's almost like they're willingly blind to the downsides.
Right.
It's a little bit, I don't know. It reminds me of how we often approach new technologies in the real world,
Absolutely. Like we see the benefits right up front, right? The immediate allure.
Yeah.
But the long-term like implications, the costs, that often gets kind of fuzzy, Yeah. And in the story, you start to see those lines kind of coming into focus as the main character experiences those first like unsettling side effects, the lightheadedness, muscle weakness, like the author describes this feeling of being untethered all the time, almost like the world is kind of swaying even when you're standing still.
It's subtle.
It's subtle at first, but then it creates this unease, this creeping suspicion that something is just not quite right,
Yeah, it's almost like a low hum of warning going on in the background of this otherwise like shiny, gravity-defying future.
Exactly. And then that hum, it gets a lot louder after the main character's near-fatal accident during that grav shift trip. And this is where I think the story transitions from like exploration to a cautionary tale.
Right.
Yeah.
That scene where the grav shift malfunctions and the main character has that like just heart-stopping moment of free fall.
Yeah.
I mean, that really stuck with me. It's like the author's, reminding us that no matter how, advanced, how amazing a technology seems, it can still fail.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that failure, it's not just a technical glitch. It has like these huge implications for humanity's whole relationship with gravity itself. Yeah, it's like it's a turning point, right? Like it's almost like a very stark reminder that we're messing with forces that, maybe we don't fully understand.
Right.
And I think the author really drives that home with the introduction of those grav shield drones. Remember those?
Yeah. The like the emergency rescue drones, basically, like a safety net for when the gravity manipulation goes haywire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even like the technology itself that I find unnerving. It's the reaction of the technicians. Like when they realize what happened to the main character, that they experience like a full system failure, you can just like sense the fear in their eyes.
It's like they understand something that the main character, at least at this point in the story, doesn't.
Totally.
Like this isn't just, a software bug or like a mechanical error. This is something much bigger, right?
Yeah, and potentially like irreversible.
Yeah. And that's where the story, I think, goes from, just kind of, cautionary tale about this technology to like full-on horror, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just that, manipulating gravity is dangerous. It's that it's actually changing us as a species. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this is where I think the author's like understanding of the science, but also like the human element really comes in. They start to describe how like prolonged exposure to either artificial gravity or even just the lack of it begins to like actually affect human physiology. Like your bones would become less dense, your muscles would atrophy, even like your cardiovascular system would start to like adapt to this new normal.
Right. So it's
that's kind of a chilling thought, isn't it? It's like we're becoming alienated from the planet itself.
Right.
And it's all the more like unsettling because the characters, at least up to this point, don't seem to realize, like what they're losing. Right. They're so focused on this like perceived liberation from like the constraints of gravity that they don't, kind of recognize like the deeper connection that they're having to sacrifice to get it.
Yeah.
The story, it highlights how like our bodies, our very existence is fundamentally like intertwined with Earth's gravity.
It's like that scene, remember, where the main character is describing like what it feels like. And they use this phrase like, I feel lighter. It's almost like the earth itself is losing its grip on me.
Yeah.
And it's, reading it's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Exactly. And that's the paradox, right? Like the weightlessness that they were like striving for that felt like freedom. It's become this like source of dread. The characters are literally becoming unmoored. Like they're drifting further and further away from the very world that they were trying to like transcend.
God, it's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
For just like the potential consequences of unchecked technological advancement.
Yeah.
But I think this story, goes even deeper than that. There's this underlying sense of like loss, like something really essential is being like stripped away here.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It is more than just like the tech, right? There's this like undercurrent of almost like sorrow, this feeling like something really precious is being lost in this pursuit of like constant progress.
Mm-hmm. It's like you were saying earlier about like our connection to Earth itself,
Yeah.
It's like it's being, frayed, stretched thin by this need to just break free from any kind of natural constraint.
And I think that's where the story really like shines,
Yeah.
It goes beyond just the cautionary tale about technology. It's like it forces you to really confront this much deeper, kind of more, existential question. What does it even mean, to be human when we've essentially engineered ourselves out of the very environment that made us who we are in the first place?
Right. And it's a question that you keep coming back to even after you finish the story.
Totally.
That final image of the main character, like what happens to them, in this gravity-defying future.
Yeah, and the author they don't ever really tell you, and I almost think that's more impactful,
Right.
than any kind of like neat resolution. It leaves you with this feeling of just like unsettling possibility. Have we created a utopia, or have we created like, a gilded cage, Like have we actually achieved true liberation, or have we just traded one form of dependence for another, one that's maybe even more insidious,
It's interesting for a story that's all about, manipulating gravity. It's actually really grounded in human experience,
Yeah.
It's like that desire to push further, that fear of the unknown, and this deep longing for connection,
Yeah.
It's all there, and it's all playing out against this backdrop of, incredible, almost unimaginable technological achievement,
Exactly. And that's what makes it so like compelling, I think, It's not just a thought experiment about like the future. It's like a reflection of, the human condition. It's reminding us that some things, like our connection to Earth, to this planet, they're more fundamental than we often realize.
Well, I think this has been quite the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone from, the thrill of defying gravity to grappling with the really big, potentially scary consequences of severing our ties to our planet. If anything, I think it's a good reminder that progress, it's not always linear, is it?
Right.
Sometimes it comes with hidden costs.
Yeah.
And consequences we didn't expect.
Absolutely. And it really highlights like the need for, a little caution as we're innovating, right? Like we have to be aware of this very delicate balance between, advancing technology and holding on to our humanity.
Something to ponder, for all you deep divers out there as we all navigate this world that seems to change faster every day.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody.